So I'm going to actually try to make switch how I was going to say this, riff off Michael's argument about math, because if you and I want to show you what education could look like, and then go into the educating the whole person. It's only going to take me, believe it or not, it'll only take me a few minutes.
Well, education.
Yeah, I know. I'm baiting the accusation here.
Education's a simpler problem than we realize. Yeah.
Sorry?
Education is a simpler problem than we realize.
You're right.
Yeah.
All right. So the point is he's started out with there's the science of the universe is a structural problem, and that he's broken it down into disciplines that there's a test for whether discipline is consistent and correspondent and testifiable to that particular set of laws. I mean, that, in simple terms, that's what he's basically saying. And so from there, we said, okay, well, there's a thing we call the grammars. How many people understand what the grammars are? Okay, let's go down. How many people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about? Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, okay, honestly, how many people know what I'm talking about? Yeah, all right. So you remember when he said dimensions? So what is a language? All right? A language is a paradigm, which is a collection of dimensions. The nouns, names, and verbs, operations. Remember he showed you go from circle A to circle B? The thing you change. And agreements. All language consists of just three things. Right? The nouns, the verbs, and whether you agree or disagree. That's it. That's why it's so fascinating. Well, what does math have? It has nouns, numbers, verbs, operations, and an equal sign or unequal sign, whatever, how things differ. That's the simplest effing language we have. It's important to understand how many dimensions are there. There's the number line, and then we add more dimensions to it. And that's why it's so complicated, is there's not enough context to make stuff come together. However, if we look at this wonderful thing here, which this is the periodic table of ideas, right? It starts with mathematics over here, and it goes to lying like a rug over here. All right? And you notice that this right here is in gray is communication. So it's honesty, negotiation, deception, right? But what I really want to get across is there's deflationary meaning and inflation. Deflationary means we've taken out of it anything that biases it. And inflationary means we've added stuff that biases. Well, what are the most common way of biasing? Loading, framing, obscuring, fiction, making shit up. Fictionalizing is how men lie. And emotional loading and framing and guilting and whatever is how women lie. It's fascinating, really. I mean, the stuff we did on lying is the most fascinating stuff research I've ever done. So basically, all this is adding dimensions. Does that make sense? Right? All we're doing is adding dimensions. And so we get to here, and this is all the sciences, and right up through, like, say, like in medicine you have a protocol, right? It's a recipe of things you fall through. Cooking is a protocol. It's a recipe of things processes you follow steps. That's deflationary language, with mathematics being the most deflationary. And these are the dimensions like we talked about. Well, the same thing is true of, now we get into ordinary communication. I'm just being honest, I'm testifying, and I am making shit up, right? And then we go through the influencing it, the fictions, the fictionalisms, and the deceits. And so, just so you know, a fiction is like you're coloring. You go everything from storytelling to making, like loading in frame and adding characters and adding context to it and making it more interesting. Like I'm trying to make this subject interesting when it's really pretty nerdy. All right. So, what this is the periodic table of language, right? All the languages. Like Michael just said, there are spaces on here that aren't full, but we know they're there. Does that make sense? I didn't do all the lies, because if I did the lies, the thing would be 3 times as wide. because it's amazing how damn good humans are at lying. Holy shit, we are amazing at lying. It's unbelievable. Where's Martin? Martin, how much fun did we have doing lying?
We also had a lot of anger.
Because the more we understood it, the more pissed off we got. And and I'm sitting there and I get bad enough, and then Martin comes in, yeah, well, they do this kind of 6 lies too. And I'm like, oh. All right. So what we have is, this is actually what people need to understand. That's the recipe for education, not the lying freaking part. Maybe the not how to lie part and catching liars part. But this is basically, and so what Michael was saying is, we can add the sciences, but we've also got how to do truth, right, which is what testimony is, and we've got reciprocity, which is what morality is. So we know the rules of the universe. Does that make sense? That's really profound. This thing gave almost, I swear to God, I love to be a drama queen, all right? All right, I'm going to do it if I can get away with it. But no shit, God, did I just do it again? I just swore again. Oh, sorry. I had to take 6 months off after I did this because I was so mentally exhausted. It was really quite hard. And this funny thing is, I don't remember if you remember this, Brandon, but I was just assuming everybody understood this. I'm like, isn't it obvious? He's like, are you an idiot? What was the answer? Yes, right? You don't have any problem calling me an idiot for some reason. Why are so many people afraid of me? You call me an idiot all the time.
I'm not sure. Step up.
Anyway, so the second part of this that's fascinating is we start here in the middle, right? But you see all these top blocks? They're generations of thought. So this is how we evolved the language of inflationary stuff, and this is how we evolved the language of deflationary stuff. It's fascinating, and we actually have who did it and the timelines on it. And so it's just like any other technology, except we went from talking nicely and getting very deflationary and telling the truth, and talking not so nicely and making amazingly complex lies. I mean, you know how much of a lie the Marxist sequence is? Right? I mean, you go from Abrahamism to the Marxist sequence, which is Marxism, neo-Marxism, postmodernism, anti-male feminism, libertarianism, neoconservatism, race Marxism, which is woke, right, to the anti-Western, anti-white. It's all just an amazing it's actually, if you think about it, we can science their lying. So one of the things we've done is we've taken to show how showing how men lie is really obvious. It's called history. So how do men lie? We might lie systematically. Those systematic lies are called the fictionalisms. What's a fictionalism? It's sophistry to idealism, philosophy, magic to pseudoscience, and occult to supernaturalism or theology. And then you get the numerology to astrology stuff in there too, which I don't want to. But we're really good at systemizing lying. It's amazing how good we are at it. The problem is we have no defense against the chick method of lying. Right? And they're oh my God, women are amazing at it. And they don't even know. So our defenses against the what we call the feminine or the empathic undermining, right? Because that's what it is. It's just undermining. Men are technically lying, and women are technically undermining, right? And that's our instincts for historical reasons. It's really, it's so fascinating, except it's infuriating, because you realize, how the hell do we even talk together at all? We've developed centuries and centuries and centuries of ways for men and women to talk together. And what have they done in 50 years to us? So what we have is the origins in the female method of warfare: gossiping, shaming, ridiculing, moralizing, psychologizing, rallying, reputation, destruction, and canceling. But it also goes up to there, which is social construction, right? Which is what the left is, right? They use social construction. And how do they use social construction? Baiting into hazard. What's baiting into hazard? Seduction. And so we go from that, and remember, it's just a cognitive bias, right? And so who's the prophet? Who's the savior? Who are saved? What's the organization? What's the goalpost? Well, we go to Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Marxism, neoconservative, libertarianism, and neo-Marxism and postmodernism. Guess what? It's the same freaking strategy, the same grammar from here to here. The same thing. And so I know I love language nerd stuff, right? I mean, it's cool. So is it cool though? If you saw the table before, which is the table of languages, and you understand this table is the evolution of this, the left's method of you don't have, I mean, I already covered the men's way of lying, right? It's so obvious because we've been doing it so long that it's like part of our institutions, right? We teach philosophy, lying. So if you look at this, you say, okay, we've got this all figured out. But if we know what to figure it out, we actually know how to get rid of it. But the flip side is we know how to teach it. So we can look at we can say, okay, we've got the basics of how the universe works, the sciences, like the physical sciences, ternary logic, evolutionary computation, and we have how people cooperate, reciprocity, demonstrated interest, testimony, and we have the grammars, which is the different techniques that humans have invented to tell the truth and lying, and we have even the way in which the modern world's problem has emerged as not the modern world's problem. Like I was trying to make that point this morning, it's just been going on forever. This technique of lying, both the masculine and feminine way, has been with us forever. It's just for right now, it's possible to do it because of democracy. So, where am I going next? So, I'm trying to bring out so we have the science across the spectrum, and we have a set of grammars that tell us what people need to know, but we need now teach the whole person. And it's not like I'm saying we don't teach the spectrum. Let me see if I can do this. No, I don't have a drawing of this one. So the next thing, if I say, what is the human instinct? Proprioception. Everybody know what that means? What's proprioception mean?
That's the internal sense of motion and position.
Correct. Right, we have that. And we have embodiment. Right? So we have embodiment. Then we have self-awareness. And then we have other awareness. Imitation, sympathizing, mental, empathizing, emotional, right? We have those three things. And we have prediction, right? We know where our bodies are going to be in space. We know where we are moving in space. I love the neuroscience of where our bodies are. It's fascinating. Right? We have all that, but we still need to educate the person from the point at which we goes from empathy, sympathizing, and imitating. We need to go through the evolutionary steps. And what am I going to start with? I'm going to start with what humans started with. Anthropomorphism. Toys are cars, right? Are people, right? Are be animals, right? Or I'm going to go with Aesop's fables, which is animals behaving like whatever. Right? So then you start out with heroism, just like humans did. Then you start out with theology, just like humans did. Then you go to philosophy, just like humans had. Then you go to philosophical rationalism, which is Kant, if you don't know the difference. Then you go to empiricism, which is the observable. What can I testify to? Then you go to science, which is how do I make sure what I testify to, I can testify to that's beyond my actual ability to perceive. Then we go to what we discovered, which is computation, which is evolutionary computation by continuous recursive disambiguation of entropy into negative entropy, meaning mass. And that's what persistence comes from. So when we look at this and say, okay, now we have to take a child, or whatever. Am I adult yet? Do I qualify? I don't know. So we have to go through this arc, and we say every time we go through this arc of theology, philosophy, rationalism, all the way to computation, we learn how to reform everything backwards. Every time we learn a little bit more, we go reform that. We learn a little bit more, reform that. We learn a little bit more, reform that. So now we got to say, okay, we've got that. Now how do we educate the whole person in that? First, the thing you need is a thing called mindfulness. Now, we took this term from Buddhism, but what does it mean? Any volunteers? Well, you're like a professional. I want to know somebody else. What is
I think it's ultimately the ability to inventory.
It's a metacognitive state. It's like almost...
The ability to inventory, where am I in space? What obligations do I have to myself? What are my physical sensations or emotions.
Why did you
What
point to your
else?
groin when you said physical sensations?
What's that?
Why did you point to your groin when you said physical sensations?
I gotta go to the bathroom, Curt. No.
So here's what it is. You want to go from reactive to active. What that means is you want to develop self-regulation to the point at which any stimulation you control your reaction and actions toward. Right? It's basically domesticating the animal human, into the conscious sentient being that's capable of cooperating in a society. So the problem is, what happens if you don't have mindfulness? You have today. You have mental illness, because we assume that the blank slate assumes that not only people are born with innate, intrinsic, all these wonderful things, but that they can be taught through this indoctrination to have mindfulness. What they're actually doing is removing mindfulness and inserting obedience. And so we have to treat mindfulness. What's necessary for mindfulness? Physical control of one's body. So you need physical. Sport is a good way of saying it, but you really need physical training. You need to learn how to work with your body and in the universe. You need to have mindfulness, which is how to self-regulate. What is the primary function of? There's two primary functions of religion. What are they? Mindfulness. Mindfulness suppresses neuroticism. What's the problem with neuroticism?
Instead of dealing with the present, you're worrying about the potentiality of the future.
Right, so it makes you crazy. Right? And which sex has more neuroticism? For what reason? Why?
Less control over the future.
Well, no, it's prey response. I got to worry about the kids all the time, and if I had to think about it, then it would be a risk to the kids. So I don't get to think about it. I get to be constantly barraged with you know, you hit on those things and all of a sudden 1,000 windows open? That's a woman's mind. I'm like, every time I think of that, I'm like, sweetheart, I absolutely positively understand. Believe me, and I'm empathizing. But so that's necessary for that reason. So neuroticism is not important for people like us, because we're like so emotionally, boringly consistent, it doesn't make any difference. But, you know, if you're on the other side of the scale, you get the people that listen to things you guys get really upset about, like the COVID nonsense and masks. Oh my God, I gotta wear my mask. I mean, but that's a mark of neuroticism. So we gotta train that into people. And then, what about natural law? What is it? Can we teach natural law to kids?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't think we could. Turns out we can. I don't remember which one of you guys figured that out.
Reciprocity is easy. If you're not reciprocal with a child, then they get upset. You have to train it out of them, not train it.
So we have to train that, and then we have to treat the grammars. And if we do that, everything's consistent across the spectrum. So the problem is, Michael tried to say, how many things are we screwing up kids' minds by making them think in abstract terms that are not actually constructed from first principles? How many times are we screwing up kids' mind by not teaching them ethics and morality from first principles? How are we screwing up kids by not teaching them basic, what we call household finance, we basically lump into economics? How much are we screwing up kids by not teaching them basic of contract, with just the way you write down ethics? How many ways are we doing that? And then if you look at these things, we know what to train kids in. Why aren't we doing it? Why is that?
Number one reason that was told to me by educational consultants is because if we teach them that, they will embarrass their parents.
That's the correct answer. That is the horror. I'm surprised that anybody actually said that to you out loud, but it's actually the problem.
All the top educational consultants know that because they're way ahead of the curve, and they basically say we can't move faster than this because the parents will hate us.
Can you hear that back there? What do you hear? You go.
The top educational consultants that I talked with during 10 years of working in this field said that we can't teach kids the way that we know is best because they will be so far ahead of their parents, they will embarrass them, and then we're going to have to deal with the blowback from the parents.
That's the right
It is the parents preventing. Sounds strange. We think it's a system. No, the parents won't accept the changes that are necessary. So what we have to do is educate the parents first.
So my example is, why don't we teach economics? Hey, Mom and Dad, I just came home from school in 10th grade, and I just realized you two are effing losers. Man, you can't manage a household, get a good job. You know, you talk nonsense every day. Your ethics is out of line. What are you thinking? You lazy people. No wonder I don't have a new lunchbox. That's what'll happen. It's actually true. You know, I'm not too fond of my sister, but she's in education. She's a hot mucky muck in education in Connecticut. And she's like, their real problem is if you like tell a parent that they need to do something responsible with their child, the parent goes nuclear and tries to get you fired. So the problem is we have not only bad teachers, right, bad administrators, a bad education department, but we have horrible parents. So the problem is, how are we going to say that, wow, we're going to do what's good for your child while they're saying what's good for your child? And the difference is we're trying to teach them to be functional adults, contributing to society and building better families. And they're saying, we're trying to make you have the less stressful environment so you don't have to adapt. Right? All right, so when I say the whole person, I'm saying we need to teach physical fitness, we need to teach mindfulness, we need to provide the basic ethical framework, we need to provide what we used to get, because I had it, we used to get manners, ethics, morals. Hygiene, manners, ethics, morals. I went to Catholic school, can you tell? All right, and so we used to get those, but then you need to have basic understanding of the world, which is, do we need as much knowledge of physics and chemistry and biology as we need of how to run a project, how to run a basic finance, how people cooperate, what is a contract? Right? Do we need to know what? Those are the basic skills we need. You know what the best class I ever had in school was? Senior year of high school, I went to Catholic school. I was trained by brothers, Xaverian brothers, right? And the best class I ever had, marriage and family. How to be married, how to pick a spouse, how to be married, how to run a household, how to raise kids, what created a long-term durable relationship, how to everything we don't do today. And so I found that the most valuable. I still got divorced 3 times, but it's not my fault. Well, 5 minutes. I'm doing pretty good because I'm also basically done. All right, so we just need to train the whole person. It's absolutely possible, and it's absolutely in that last graph we had, and Michael's description of it, and that we can create a consistent group of people and give them the truth to work with. What does the truth and reciprocity produce? It produces the high trust society. What does the high trust society produce? It produces cooperation, it produces economic velocity, which is basically wealth, and it produces innovation, adaptation, and evolution of the people. What has made, if I showed you that diagram first thing this morning, that big long wall of text, what does it say? It says Western civilization cooperates more, evolves faster than all other civilizations combined. Why? Because we're trustworthy. Well, most of us are. We're trustworthy. All right. Did I make my point here? Does that help a little bit? Right. That's my quick bit on education. We can educate the whole person. I've talked to some people here about how to clean up the educational system. It's so easy. The first thing we do is we just do what everybody's talking about now, which is shut down the Department of Education, return education to the state and the locality, get the right parents involved, create criteria for what's prohibited, and they're doing in school, and we're going to be good because it's what we don't do that's almost more important than what we do. All right. Love you all. Thanks for listening to me again.